Ah, there's my beautiful face. All right. Well, I guess we are here, somewhat here. You are tuned in live with us from Frisco, Texas at Venture X Studios. Our gracious host here. There is a little fly in the ointment today. I am DJ Kelly Reverb, and that is the Professor Nolan, which is normally sitting there, but we're playing a little musical chairs via Zoom today. So, Nolan, so good of you to show up.
Yeah, I was gonna be there, but when I walked out of my door, there was a burning baby in the tree.
And then,
well, no, the tree was on fire. There was a baby. There was an old lady who was sick. There was a car crash too. There were
anyway, we have you here now, so that's all that matters is that Nolan got his beauty sleep. That's really all that counts.
You want to know
yes.
The real story?
Let's hear it.
The real story is
you were watching the back of your eyelids. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, it is. I slept in, but because I actually stopped work a little early because I was like, I got the show in the morning, so we'll shut down work a little early. That way I'm well rested.
Sure.
Went home, watched the documentary on all the plastic in the oceans in the world.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard of Plastic Island. Yep.
Hey, you gotta be up on the plastic, and you gotta know. And then I went to sleep like the show didn't even exist. No alarm necessary.
Well, we appreciate that here.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well,
it was high on the priority list.
Yeah. Well, we know your prima donnaism. It's okay. It's okay, Nolan. I mean, you just did it so you could vape during the episode, right?
Yeah, that's
pretty much.
That's probably the real reason,
right?
Subconsciously.
Well, just in case all of you that haven't tuned in before, this show is to help people obtain and maintain sobriety. So, yes, and we brought in, we'll just jump to him because he has got a lot to say. He is very active in the sober community. I see him. I can't unsee him. He's everywhere. And now he's on this pink cloud. But this is Michael Molthan. He has a show called M2 The Rock, and that is a radio show.
It used to be. I mean,
and now it's internet.
It's all digital and video.
Okay.
But we were terrestrial for over a year at iHeartRadio.
Yeah.
Drive home traffic, and it was kind of cool. I was side by side with Russ Martin. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, we were at the studios doing terrestrial and video.
Right.
I'd set up my own camera to go live, but as you know, the world today is no longer terrestrial. It's all digital. So we're still with iHeart on their digital app and all that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, so let's just jump into it. I mean, basically what we do is obviously you are sober. We were talking about that.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah, right. As sober as I can be. Right. So you were basically, what was your DOC when you were active?
Well, I like to, alcohol was, a big, that was my medication. It was, every day was, a lubricant because I could do that in the public, right?
Oh, yeah,
because that was socially acceptable to drink, normally whatever that is at the bar with my guys, but go in the bathroom and do abnormal things, which that kind of sounds weird, but drug related,
we know.
So I got into narcotics and I did everything. I did everything to change the way I felt. I'd go up, I'd go down, and medicine works different with me. Things that make people go up actually calm me.
Right. Yeah.
And things that make people go down actually amp me up. So,
right.
So I was a confused drug addict.
Well, and I've heard your story before, but why don't you give the elevator pitch, or you don't even have to elevator. You can spend some time on it and just tell your backstory, so the people will know where you're coming from.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, when we tell our story, it's, I was taught, to share what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. And so, what it was like is a very small part of my story, because if that is the main part of my story, maybe I'm not sober, maybe I'm not done. Right.
Right.
But I've also, when I speak and tell my story, I make it very clear that I drank alcohol and I did drugs because of the effect. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I can't get confused and justify that, if you had my life, you'd do this too. If you were sexually abused, you would do this too. If you were abused and if you were betrayed and all that, you would drink too, right?
Right.
No, that's not recovery.
Well, a lot of like what we talk about is, a lot of people that do abuse, it is trauma based.
Absolutely. It's trauma based. And, and my purpose of what I do today, I've come to the conclusion that we're all addicts.
Sure.
And we've all endured some sort of trauma. And what happens is that the enemy gets in our head and go, well, I'm not going to share my trauma because it's not as bad as him or her.
Right.
Who cares about my trauma? Trauma's trauma.
Right.
I mean, there are people who are traumatized because their dad did not come to their championship football game, and that's real. Yeah. That's real trauma.
Sure.
And trauma in my...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, trauma in my world leads to resentments.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Professor.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is, it's going to be, I'll keep my
comments to a minimum.
It's all good. It's your show.
Yeah. Well, normally when I'm there, it's helpful when I'm there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it doesn't feel any different, right? I mean, the trauma that one person experiences because of X feels the same as the trauma that this person experiences because of Y. Putting them on some sort of weird scale that says this is worse or better or harder or more difficult to deal with than this over here is completely irrelevant. It feels the same on the inside. Has the same effects, and we can all relate on that level. Trying to get into the weeds of I only relate to people that have been through this is missing the point. So I like that you said that.
Yeah, well said.
It's a good point.
The brain. I've learned that the brain processes trauma and pain the same way as it processes depression. Anxiety. It's pain, and so there's no what does that mean? There's no difference between a broken femur bone and trauma. And so when we go to the hospital and we are given opiates, for the pain, what happens? The pain goes away.
Sure.
And so they prescribe us opiates, and we go, wow, I don't feel pain anymore. I'm starting to feel like other people look.
Right.
And so I continue to take,
or so you conceive.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
right.
and so, I start taking the opiates because the pain's gone away. And so, that's a whole other story about how the opiate crisis. So, but my personal story is it's no different than anybody else that is addicted to drugs and alcohol and is struggling. I drank alcohol and I did drugs, and there was that moment where something happened and it worked.
Right.
And I continued to drink and do drugs to chase that one spot.
Sure.
And there were consequences, and stuff started happening, and I started getting found out. So I would start lying and isolating to protect my God of my understanding, which is drugs and alcohol.
Sure.
Right? And so I was willing to go to any lengths to protect that. And then there comes a time where, I look in the mirror, literally, where no one's around, and I go, something's wrong.
Sure.
Something's wrong. I'm never drinking or doing drugs again. Can y'all relate to that?
I love that speech.
So when we do that, we mean it. We really do mean it. We really do mean it.
Yeah, this is it. That's it. This is bottom.
And so we're drunk and high again that night, but it's not a burnout, but it's like, I just need to level off.
Sure.
I can't just detox and just quit cold turkey. And that's what the disease does. And then we never we end up in this sick cycle.
You end up not quitting.
Right. I have a broke brain trying to fix a broke brain.
Sure.
And unfortunately, I hurt a lot of people in the past,
Yeah.
and so, key things like, you're selfish. I never understood that word because I've always been a good guy, but when people call me selfish, I heard you're bad.
Yeah.
And so, and then they started talking about God and church, and I didn't want any part of that.
Right.
I'm not into witchcraft.
Witchcraft.
And so I started hearing all this stuff until the pain gets bad enough.
Right.
And, I started going to, back in 2000, I started going to some support groups and going in and I would hear their stories and I would say, wow, those guys are just dealt a bad deck. I got lots of money.
Sure.
I own a company. I got a house. I mean, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not like them.
Yeah.
Yet.
I'm successful. Yes.
Right, yeah.
And you're in your brain, you're okay. And you don't have a problem because you're not as bad as
That's
them.
right.
Yeah.
And so, but
and it's so funny just to that game that we play, that always trying to find the differences in people. When I first approached support groups and things like that, I was the exact opposite. I was a complete
Yes. Yeah.
I had nothing to my name, no place to live, anything. Right. But my mind still does the same game where I'm not like these people because they haven't taken it as far as I've taken it. They don't know what I've been through. They don't know what I've seen.
So you're the other guy, the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Well, I became...
and the point being, that's how our brain works.
Yeah.
Addicts and alcoholics in general. It's how it works. It's always trying to find some reason why you're not like these people.
Right. In 2002, I finally I took the strong suggestion from loved ones, and my former wife said, you need to go to you're an alcoholic and drug addict when you're always saying former wives, right? And then we blame it on them. But so I went to Betty Ford in 2002 because that's where real important people who have money like me go, right?
Sure,
so,
of course. Yes, it's established. It's okay.
Right. They better have a bed
in society.
They better have a bed ready for me or a room ready for me because I'm going there and I'm the client and they're going to do what I tell them to.
There better be fully loaded cable too.
Right. So they're going to do exactly what I say because I'm the client. And I'll never forget this, that my counselor at the time said, you're never going to experience real sobriety until you do step 3. Well, what's that? Well, so I'm a 12-step program guy.
Sure.
It changed my life, and I owe it all to that. I don't represent any support group, but I do work the 12 steps, and so he said, you'll never get sober until you make a decision to turn your will and life over to the care of God as you understand him. And I said, I appreciate that. I don't want any part of that. I'm here to get fixed and go home and go back to work.
Right.
And so he goes, well, let me tell you something. He says, when we're in group, all you talk about are your 3 boys. That's all you talk about. All you talk about are your 3 boys. I also have a daughter. And, it's just like, you love these kids. You love these kids.
Sure.
And it's very apparent you love them. He says, well, what if one day they get up in the room and they cuss you out, spit in your face, flip you off, and leave? How would you feel? And I'd say, I'd be really sad. And he says, 40 years later, there's a knock on the door. And you open that door and those 4 grown-ups are sitting there. Do you let them back in your house? I said, absolutely. No questions asked.
Sure.
And he said, you've just described your God. And that was a seed that was planted that I'll never forget. In 2017, I walked out of the penitentiary after 27 mugshots,
right.
4 felonies.
How many rehab attempts?
Numerous. And I walked out of, in 2017, I was accidentally released and walked out completing step 3.
Yeah.
So it's funny at Betty Ford, they said, hey, go to support group meetings, get a counselor, a coach, a sponsor, whatever that is. And men work with men, women work with women, and go to meetings. The penitentiary said the exact same thing. So, and my judge said the exact same thing. So once I got released, I traveled 300 miles by foot to get home and to turn myself in, and Judge Jennifer Bennett set me free. And but I was homeless. I was homeless, and
sure.
And I heard Brian Glenn from In the Know Business was looking for me, wanting to know where this big time home builder has gone.
Right.
And I shared this story with him, and he's like going, "Wow, what year was this?" And I said, "This was Friday." You know, and so, you know, iHeartRadio heard it. You know, Channel 8 News heard it, and it just is blown up. I'm not I've never been a radio TV guy, but now I am. So,
well, yeah. So like, we were talking about that earlier, how you actually stumbled into this, or, you know, how did that happen? How did that process happen from you going, okay, well, I'm sober, then I'm going to start talking about it, right?
Right. Well, it happened when I was incarcerated, you know.
Okay.
Let me tell you what really happened, okay? In order for God to set me free, I had to set everyone around me free. And the first person I had to set free was myself. And so I am a spiritual guy. I'm a God guy. I'm a Jesus guy. And I very rarely talk about it, but I get to be a great witness for Christ and for recovery by my behaviors. I get to be a great witness and an example of recovery by my transparency.
Sure.
And so it's working. It's helping a lot of people because steps 1 and 2 has nothing to do with God. You know what I mean? And thank God, you know, step 3 is all about God, and that would run me away. But you know, what I did is I started being I had a spiritual awakening while I was incarcerated. I had a bright light experience. I mean, and I didn't ask for it. I didn't do this like magical prayer. It just happened, and so God started using me, you know, while incarcerated. And I started helping other inmates. And I started doing easy time, and I was at so much peace. And I didn't know why, but I started understanding the reason why I was at so much peace is because I was out of self serving others. And it was literally by writing for them. They couldn't read or write, read to them. And, you know, I was introduced to this book, you know, Detours by Dr. Tony Evans. It was given to me by an inmate that didn't want to read it. I started reading it, and it was telling my story, the story of Joseph. And, you know, and I was just sharing this with inmates, and I became tank boss. You know what I mean? And so, so what happened is that I found my freedom while I was incarcerated, and where my peace comes is serving others. Right. And that's what's so beautiful about support groups, meetings, is that for 1 hour, you know, if it's a 12 o'clock support group meeting, at about 12:20, I start getting out of self and I start really getting engaged, right? But I always leave a support group meeting, a church service today, feeling better. Right. Why is that? Because for at least 1 hour, I'm out of self and in the now.
Well, I think that's why they do the 12 and 12 in the beginning.
Right.
Just so it gives you a chance to focus and then go, oh, yeah, there's other people in the world.
Right. And something very powerful happens in support group meetings is that, you know, I get to sit down and share, you know, what's happening, and something really spiritual happens is that everybody in the room starts nodding their head, right? They laugh because they've done it and can relate.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I feel safe. And I've taken the next step personally to take this transparency to the world, to speak to people who drugs and alcohol is not their DOC.
Sure.
But maybe work, gambling, pornography, food, exercising, hobbies. And I've come to the conclusion we're all addicts.
Sure.
We are addicted to visible things to try to fix our invisible problems.
Right.
And so Dr. Tony Evans says it best, you know, what is addiction? You know, addiction is the street name for the biblical term spiritual stronghold, false idols, you know. Okay. So what is that? It's a person, place, thing, you ready? Or thought that has become my source.
Sure.
Right? So codependency, thing is drugs and alcohol or the other things I name. A thought, all right, could be a thought that that's out there. I grab that thought, it becomes my thought, and I start hearing that thought in my own voice, and it makes sense, and then I say, this is a good decision.
Right. Right.
And so these are the things I talk about.
I think this is really important. When you say source, I know what you mean, but elaborate what you mean when you say source.
Well, it becomes when I say source, I'm searching for visible things to fix my invisible problems, whether it be people, You know, if I get with this girl, I can get sober because I'll do it for her, you know, or places, you know, I get addicted to going to places, or I shift the view and I say, you know, I start hanging out here and doing that. Things, drugs and alcohol, you know, or buying stuff, you know, I'm going to buy this car. It'll change the way I feel. Shopping, you know, I'm going to, can I relate to this? I'm going to go purchase this house. I know I can't afford it, but it'll make me work harder. Right.
Right.
I don't have the luxury to think like that.
Sure.
You know, thoughts are a result of fear, you know, just one more. Maybe I'm not a drug addict and alcoholic. You know, maybe I can do some controlled drinking. You know?
Sure.
I can't do controlled anything.
Right. Yeah.
I've never taken 2 Advil in my life. Right. And so that's what that means. Does that help?
That's the recommended dosage is just for dumb people anyways. I mean, if you really want it to work, you need to take more.
Right.
Everybody knows that.
So that's what that means is, and so I got 3 messages last night through social media. It was really cool. These are the messages I love. You know, hey, I really enjoy watching your show, listening to your stuff, hearing you speak, because it's so cool that drugs and alcohol is not my problem, but you've made me realize that, man, I've got some issues. I got some problems.
Right.
That's got my life unmanageable.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand. I mean, I totally agree with that 100%. So real quick, we need to get in our sponsor here, our lovely Summer Sky. So Summer Sky, if you can throw that up, there it is. They are good people. That's where Nolan and I went, and we do appreciate them supporting the show. And, do you have anything to say, Professor?
No, Summer Sky in Stephenville, Texas.
Is this how you look? I imagine this is your facial expression while you're waiting for an Uber fare, right?
That you know what? It probably is. I haven't seen that, but it probably is. Summer Sky Inpatient Treatment Center in Stephenville, Texas. Like Kelly said, good people, faith-based, 12-step based treatment center where we met.
And Smart Recovery. They support it all. They're multiple pathways.
Oh, well, they'll point you in whatever direction you want to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but,
I gotcha.
But yeah, they specialize in helping out drug addicts and alcoholics, and inpatient treatment is a good step, a good first step for a lot of people like us. So reach out to them if you need help, and they will work with you.
Well, I wanted cool. All right, so I wanted to get back to the book you were talking about, because I know I was actually watching a show you were just on, and you were talking about detours. So you were delving into that a little bit more. So can you expound on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you know, it's a book that really helped the Bible even become more clear to me. And Dr. Tony Evans, and he's a very well-known pastor in the world. He's a huge following, and I never knew all this, but when I got this book and I started reading it, he talks about that detours are placed in our life as an opportunity to get stronger and get closer to God. And so he uses the example of, we drive the same way to work every day, and we've got our structured routine, and we're in the groove, and all of a sudden there's a detour in the road. Right. And it's like we get mad, we get angry, like, how can this be happening to me? But we take the detour because we have to.
Sure.
But once we take the detour, if I'm spiritually fit, I'm like driving the detour going, oh, I didn't know this was over here.
Right.
I didn't know this restaurant was here. I didn't know this was here. And it's like, cool. I mean, I'm glad we took this detour,
I'm
right?
checking stuff out.
Right.
Yeah,
and if I'm not spiritually fit, I don't see that stuff.
Sure.
And I'm angry and I hold on to it. And it may, change my world where, I go do what I do. Right.
Sure.
So that's kind of a snapshot of what a detour is. And it's a planned detour by God. And so what happens is we learn to take our past and see how God was always in control, was always working. This book really helped me with forgiveness. It really helped me with, like, how do we know if we've forgiven someone? How do we know if it's worked? And Dr. Evans says in this book, it's that, true forgiveness is when we stop planning revenge in our head, or literally. We're not gossiping anymore, because gossip is a form of non-forgiveness and resentment. So he talks about that. These words that I've always heard, forgiveness and grace. What does it really mean? And so he touches on that. He talks about a lot of things in here, but I highly recommend this book. It's an easy read. I highly recommend to download his app and go watch his stuff. And it's really cool.
It looks like an easy read. I'm like, it's not like War and Peace,
right?
So it's not like an encyclopedia. I can maybe handle that, or I can at least get it on audiobook, right?
And he's funny, he's funny. He's got some fun stuff in there, and he's amazing. He's amazing for me, and I've gotten to get to know getting to know the team.
So I had just a random thought last night, and I want to try this out, but. And we can each take our chance to answer. But I wanted to know, for our guest, of course, what was the worst part of addiction for you?
The mental obsession.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the worst part of addiction and the insanity. For the normal definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? Mm-hmm. That's not my definition.
Sure.
I got so sick that I was doing the same thing over and over, knowing what the result was going to be. Right. The addiction, the mental obsession, that's all I think about. It's all I would think about. I would cancel meetings. I never stuck to a schedule. Everything revolved around drinking and drugging. And the painful thing about it, addiction is all the lies and the spinning all the plates and keeping my stories straight. It's exhausting.
Oh yeah. Like we always say, it's a full-time job.
Yeah,
and you work for alcohol and drugs.
Yes, and just that inner hole, that emptiness inside that I literally just feel with chaos.
Yeah, and it's a void that that obviously cannot be filled with drugs and alcohol. But it's just, that's how you've learned to cope with it, and it's a coping mechanism.
That was the tools that I had. And the great thing is that today I love sharing, and being a service to people to say, hey, you never have to feel this way ever again.
Yeah.
And so
speaking of that, okay, so what would you, like, somebody out there that's listening today, what would you say, like, and they say, hey, I think I have a problem. What would your advice be for that person?
Well, to get honest, that's a spiritual principle behind step one. Admit that you're powerless over drugs and alcohol. We'll use as an example, and that your life has become unmanageable. And the first thing is to reach out. If you're a man that is struggling, reach out to some man in recovery that has got some time on his side and say, I need help.
Sure.
And I challenge everyone on drugs and alcohol is that if you're watching this today, what we do is we get in our head saying, okay, I never want to drink again. I never want to do drugs again for the rest of my life. No, let me help you out there.
Yeah.
Because what I do is I tell that person as I'm on the phone with them, I'm saying, hey, we've been on the phone for 15 minutes. Have you drank or done drugs? No. Why?
Right.
I don't know. Well, it's one addict working with another, right?
Right.
So I challenge you to reach out and ask for help. And just, can you go the next 5 minutes without drugs and alcohol? It's amazing. They immediately say, no problem. Okay, it was easy to say that, right? What is that? They don't realize that they have faith. That's faith.
Right.
And so, but if you say, can you go the rest of your life without drugs and alcohol? It's kind of like, well, I don't know about that.
It's all just relative and the time.
So it's, the common, the industry standard is reach out, ask for help. Okay. All right. Okay. What do I do? And that's what you do. Reach out to a man in recovery. Women, reach out to a woman in recovery, and say, I don't want to drink or do drugs today, and I don't know why I'm doing it.
Sure. Yeah.
That's simple.
Do you have anything to add there, Professor? Or
no,
actually, what here? This will be interesting because I don't know. What was the worst part of your addiction, man?
I mean, the worst part.
Like groundhogism, or. Just
being a total slave. Just the bondage of it. just being a total slave to that mental obsession, really, but to alcohol and drugs. There's nothing ever in my life has even come close to controlling me in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I have had, I have been obsessed with a woman before. I have been obsessed with work.
Mm-hmm.
I have chased okay in money and things like that. But the power that alcohol and drugs had over me was to this day really is almost, it's impressive almost how powerful the hold was.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would say the worst part was just the complete bondage of it.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. Yeah. I agree with that. I put down the groundhogism as far as the Groundhog Day. And then, obviously dealing with the consequences, which you've, made happen unintentionally. And then I put down not being able to participate in a quote unquote normal life, because I was just, that spun out where life wasn't normal, or so to speak, normal for me, No,
I totally relate and agree. There's a lot of bad.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad. There's a lot of bad for sure. Yeah, because I was talking to, and I talked to you about this actually, about my buddy who is incarcerated right now, and about how he wanted me to co-sign on his bond. And I was like, I'm your friend, dude, but that's not going to happen.
I'm going to be your friend and not co-sign.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that time, of forced rehab is what some people need, unfortunately, but it is a way to get sober.
He's there for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but he's there for a reason, and he needs to be there until he finds out what that reason is.
Right. And so we have talked about this before, but also, on the show, I proudly state that I am a licensed RSPS, which is a recovery peer support person or whatever.
Wow, yeah, that's awesome.
So, and I have a certificate. I got it in the email. But you were saying that you also are a recovery coach on a small scale for a few people. So, expound on that. How did you become about? Did you get any kind of formal training, or is it?
Well, it was one test that I aced. I had a lot of experience with addiction and alcoholism and all that stuff. Right. So, I did a golly, I don't know how many hours it was. It was like 3 weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays from sun up to sundown. So I got a certificate. I'm a certified, recovery coach. As far as like what I'm doing, Into the Rock show is not a profit center. I mean, it's a hook. That's why I look at it from a business standpoint. Sure. It's the hook, and it's created these revenue opportunities, which is we're going to be writing a book. Mm-hmm. We have the recovery coach, area, and then we have public speaking. Mm-hmm. To go speak and share the story. So, I speak at different levels. I can speak to prisoners, I can speak to kids, and I can go to corporate America and speak to them because I've lived all those lives.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I do that, but the recovery coaches, we are just starting to get that going public to work with, but it's very, I don't want to say elite, very boutique. It's a very small clientele that I work with, and it's a great opportunity, right now to help some people.
Oh yeah.
So I
agree.
I'm available.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Oh yeah. I guess you'd probably have your email up there, right? In case anybody wants to reach out to Michael.
Yeah, you can get me through mtotherock.com.
Yeah, well, there we go. mtotherock.com.
That's fine.
They're on top of it.
But yeah, I do the recovery coaching, and it's I can handle about 5 clients and that's it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I have 3 spots open.
Sure. And then so when you do that, what does it entail? Like what? Because just for me, because I've had friends that have helped out, as I would consider myself a recovery coach for them, but like. Where are your parameters? Like, where do you, okay, try to not make calls after 11 p.m. or do you have parameters set up or are you just...
I do. My curriculum is what's working for me. Mm-hmm. There are many roads to recovery.
Sure.
I totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
There's many roads to relapse.
Sure.
It's a complete opposite, right?
Right.
So when I coach someone, they are attracted to me, and I really try to stay focused on. I'm horrible at self-promotion. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm great at promoting other people.
I think you're pretty good at it.
Yeah. Well, what's working is it's attraction that's built into the rock up.
Yeah.
It's so people who want to work with me, they want what I have.
You're stealing stuff from the big book right there.
Oh yeah, right. No, but it works, right? And so it is. So I just give them what I have and what I know to do. We set parameters. Some people need medical attention. Some people need, a psychiatrist. I put a team together.
Yeah.
Psychiatrist.
Sure.
Because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer.
Right.
I could be a lawyer. I'm very well versed in civil, federal, crime, family. But
right. Yeah.
But so, I just coach them in the right direction and I hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And so it's, I'm looking forward to this area of my life to do that.
Yeah. Well, so am I. And
but I only work with men.
Yeah.
I only work with men. And, it's interesting because on Into the Rock, we have a big male following, but we have a huge female following, and the females are the ones who do the most engaging.
Right.
Men sit back and watch.
Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting. So I learned from this deal. And so I try to create, how can I get men to engage more into what we're doing?
Right.
And that's my focus.
Trying to get dudes to share their feelings.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or just to do that. And so, so it's interesting. I see the opportunities here. There are people in the recovery community, the online community, that these situations happen and they abuse it.
Right.
So I've been very vocal here lately about some men that take advantage of this opportunity that we're given. And so that's why I'm very focused on.
Well, there is an aspect of that, and it's something I would never look into, but I have a friend that works at an establishment, Homeward Bound, and there's bed hopping, going on that people just manipulate the system.
It's full blown relapse behavior.
Yeah.
And so when we work the 12 steps, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we become different people. We don't think that way anymore.
Right.
And I do say this, I recognize the behavior because I used to do it.
Yeah.
Not bad, but it's the thoughts, you know what I mean? So
we got very cunning and
manipulative. So I'm trying to
somehow
create a way to educate the people who are doing this in a godly way and using my experience and, not shooting at people, you know what I mean? So that's it's a new thing for me, to try to hold some people accountable out of love.
Yeah, sure.
In that way. So, Into the Rock is not a platform to, talk about your resentments. It's all solution.
Yeah.
All solution.
Yeah, that's good. If you, that's the way I look at it. If I'm trying to help somebody out, I assess that person and then go, okay, well, what do you think will work for you?
Right.
And definitely, I'm either way, I tried that AA thing and it doesn't work for me. Well, hey, there's a whole other side to it. Give this a try and see if you can relate better, or try another group, because guess what? There's 9 million of them out there. So.
Well, here's my firm boundary as a coach.
Yeah.
Is complete abstinence. Okay. So if someone, I've had this before, hey, I'm gonna stop drinking and doing cocaine, but I'm gonna smoke weed.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say, well, I'm not your coach.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of like coaching a football player, and he says, listen, I'll play for you, but I'm only going to play 7 plays a game.
Right.
Okay, well, you can go play for somebody else. Right. And I do that out of love.
Yeah, sure.
That's a luxury I don't have.
Right.
I can't do controlled anything.
Yeah, I gotcha. Mm-hmm. Do you have any questions over there, Professor? You're looking deep in thought.
No, well, I mean, no, I absolutely agree with what you just said. Complete abstinence. I mean, for one, I think that the best way I can describe it is, I'm a person where maybe there's a maybe, and I mean maybe I could smoke weed and maybe get away with it. It wouldn't take over my life. But one thing I know for sure would happen is it would completely cut me off from the gifts that are available in sobriety. Some of the connections that I've made with other people, some of the connections I've made to God's world. Like I can't explain it. I would say, walking through the pain of early sobriety all the way, it is necessary for me to be able to come out the other end. And like right now, I'm in my car doing this, right? But next door is a park, and there's all these people just walking around the park. And every time I kind of see him, this old guy make a full lap, I just kind of smile to myself. I'm like, all right, old guy, go get it. How many laps are you going to do today? But that connection to another human being, I don't get that unless I'm 100% abstinent from alcohol and drugs.
Well said.
If I'm because if I'm putting something into my body like that, it becomes the focal point. That's just the way my brain works. It becomes the goal for the day. I have to then plan around, okay, when am I going to smoke weed today? And when do I need to not be high because I have this to do? And, blah, blah, blah.
We don't do that.
I want to deal.
We don't do that with Frosted Flakes, right?
Yeah.
We don't do that. That's a perfect example is like, I love it when people, I love it when somebody calls me and tells me that, hey, I'm just going to, or they call me and they say, hey, guess what? I'm not an alcoholic, but I've cut back and I'm only drinking beer. I'm like, okay, normal people don't have to make that announcement, right? They don't have to say, right. And I didn't ask them. I said, you called me, and so why are you telling me that? Well, I just wanted to let you know. And I'm like going, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call Professor and say, hey, I just want to reach out to you and let you know that I'm only drinking 2 glasses of milk this week. Right.
Right.
So it's funny, but complete abstinence is for me. And then we've done shows on MAT, medically assisted treatment.
Oh yeah.
Into what's your stance on that? Suboxone, methadone, and all that. And I'm not a doctor.
Right. Yeah. We actually had a doctor on here, Dr. Robert Hernandez, shout out. And we actually talked about harm management.
Yeah. So it's I work closely with Dr. Lee Spencer, in the Park Cities, an addiction psychiatrist. And we had this conversation and it was really cool because, if my recovery is here, right?
Sure.
And Matt is here, guess what happens? Matt goes away.
Right.
But if Matt is here, which people who are watching, it stands for medically assisted treatment. The high topic is Suboxone, methadone, but antidepressants and whatever, some ADD or all that.
Right.
But if my recovery's here, the Matt's here. But if my Matt is here, where the pill bottles are talking to me, and my recovery's here, we got a problem.
Right.
So that feels right. I get that because there are people who need that. There is a medical situation that it needs to be attended to, and when that medicine mixed with recovery, it's really powerful.
Yeah,
really powerful. The medicine mixed with alcohol and drugs is really powerful.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so it's the complete opposite. So I highly recommend that, if you're, reach out to an addiction psychiatrist that specializes in this.
Yeah. And I mean, whatever.
And don't run game on them.
Right. Yeah. Just be honest. Definitely. Yeah. It's so funny because a lot of people, that I talked to since I came out, as far as, being in recovery, have reached out to me, and they're starting to tell me all this heavy stuff that happened to them and their trauma. And I'm like, have you, do you have, a counselor or psychiatrist? And they go, oh, yeah. I go, have you ever talked to them about it? And they're like, no. And I'm like, that's what they're there for.
Right.
So,
it's the medically assisted treatment is a very, hot topic. And also the other topics is, a lot of people who, I get really, getting drug addicts and alcoholics to follow us and follow our show and all that. That's easy. Mm-hmm. That's easy. And so my mission is to, and the other ones that we get, are the codependents. Hey, please help my husband, please help my wife, and and all this. The response is, what are you doing to get help? So codependency is a huge deal. There's a support group called Al-Anon. And so what happens is the drug addict, alcoholic, or the gambler, or porn addict, whatever it is, okay? What happens is that person becomes our drug.
Right.
And, we admit that our life has become completely unmanageable as a result of Michael.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I'm sticking up for him, I'm justifying, I'm hiding for him, I'm lying for him.
Oh yeah.
And I'm dying for him.
Yeah.
And that is it's actually been called out that it's more of a sick disease than actual alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
It's the codependency part. So those are the ones I try to, to reach out to. And
there's a book out there. I'm not crazy, I'm codependent.
Ooh. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. So it's a good one. And that's from my buddy at Skate Straight. I always have to give them a shout out.
Cool.
That's my sober meeting I go to every Saturday and Tuesdays.
Awesome. That's what's up.
Yeah, which is smart recovery, but there's plenty of people that do both. So, which is me. So that's
well, for people also new that are listening to this, recovery is not about getting good. Recovery is about getting well. And are we ever cured? No, thank God.
Well, and I love this. It's not called recovered.
Right.
It's called recovery.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And so do I still struggle with all these things? Yes, but I recognize it. We talk about relapse a lot. Oh, I relapsed. But when we relapse and the alcohol and drugs hit our body, we're now back into full-blown addiction.
Sure.
What were the behaviors leading up to the relapse? It's probably cross-addiction. I started smoking again. I started cussing. Whatever it is. I started all my character defects were coming back. Mm-hmm. And recovery is recognizing these character defects and stopping it then.
Right. I agree. Nolan, you got anything to add there with your pensive look?
I mean, that's pretty... Yeah, that's pretty dead on. No, I mean, I'm going to check out the Detour book. The second you mentioned it, I was like, okay, I got to check that out. So I'll definitely be doing that. But
screenshot.
No, nothing really to add. I mean, I can definitely agree with that. I had a good period of sobriety, very quality sobriety, active in recovery, and had gotten a lot better. Then,
that's a good question. That's a good question for Michael. So did you ever have a point of where you were sober for a long time and then relapsed? Or
So from 2002 to about, I guess, 7, I didn't have any alcohol, and I don't chalk. Did I work all 12 steps? No.
Right. You were a partial addict. So
I
those.
was the typical step 1, 2, and out. Right. And so, when that happened, the relapse behavior started, and then I relapsed, and I never knew why I was doing it. I'm like, how did this happen?
Sure.
So right now I'm coming up on 4 years. This is the most true sobriety I've ever had. And, the miracles have happened. I mean, heck, my oldest son in Orlando, reached out to me in January, and, he said, you were the last person I thought that I would ever reach out to ask for help. And he's watching the show, and, I flew out there the next day to help him, and he's just on fire for this, and
cool.
So these miracles, it's just amazing, what happens.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a big difference between sobriety and dry.
Yeah.
Right now, for the last, we've been on for 35 minutes, 40 minutes. Okay. I've been sober, which means I feel better because I'm out of self.
Right.
There are days where I'm not drinking and drugging, but I'm not sober.
Right.
Right. I'm not spiritually connected. I'm mad. I want to stay mad. It feels good.
Right.
And so
I'm sure there's an addiction to anger.
Well, that's what got us here.
Yeah.
I talk about that. Resentment is the number one offender. It kills the human race.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank God there's a stigma to my solution.
Yeah.
And the consequences were so bad that I got to find a solution.
Right.
I feel sorry for the rich man who is a workaholic and is spiritually dead.
Yeah.
And I used to be that guy.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, so this is the longest amount of sobriety I've ever had.
Okay.
Yeah. As a result of the 12 steps.
Right. Yeah.
All of them.
And right. All 12.
Right.
But yeah, Nolan can probably relate with you on that term, or actually on a lot of levels. Nolan was also, we openly talk about this, how he was homeless living behind a CVS, an IV user.
Right.
And, but then he actually had a period of sobriety, which was was it 7 years, Nolan, or? Hello?
Yeah, about 7 years.
Yeah, and then the brain tricked you into, I'm a grown man, I can have a drink if I want, and then back to the races, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I was kind of getting into. My Michael was talking about, looking back on it now. My character defects had started cropping up. I had become obsessed with work, specifically obsessed with the respect that I commanded up at work.
You had a title.
The way that it fed my ego, the spending money and feeling like a big shot with the money that I spent, things like that. Very, very ego-driven activity, all about trying to feel good and better than and all that crap. And, and eventually I drank again. And what was the initial plan going in was, I'm just going to drink because I know drugs are bad, but I think I can probably at this point, having been sober for a while and being a little more older and mature, and having a lot more to lose. I thought that would help me.
Right.
Having a lot more to lose.
I wonder, I'm sitting here asking myself, I wonder if I have any ego issues with the whole, the whole DJ thing. Oh yeah. You're not searching for attention, are you? You're not searching for praise.
Back to what Professor was just talking about. And when I'm approached and I get down to the root, man, Michael, why am I relapsing? Why did I relapse? And I was sober for, 7 years. And I say, I'm going to break this down. I asked 3 questions.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I'll ask you this, Professor, if you look back at it, and I always hear this, all right. Were you attending support group meetings regularly?
Strike one.
At the end, no.
So no.
No.
So once that no box is checked, were you calling your sponsor? No.
Oh, no.
And were you working the 12 steps? No. And so what happens is what's so dangerous. We get disconnected.
Yeah.
And the enemy and the disease starts telling me that I'm cured. Look at all the stuff that you have now as a result of sobriety. And that's why they say, working with newcomers keeps us grounded, because Nolan, he went back out because he was disconnected.
Right. Yeah. He wasn't active in his recovery.
We don't relapse. It's impossible to relapse and be spiritually connected at the same time.
Well, and that's where the huge the service work comes into play, and it reminds you of, hey, I was just like that person. I can relate to that person somehow. because I was there, and that's a good reminder. Not only are you advising that person, but it's also helping keep you sober.
Well, in the corporate world, in the business world, I mean, what does, when a new employee comes in, he's assigned a big brother or big sister to walk them through for 30 days of how the office works, right?
Sure, yeah.
And what happens is the veteran gets back to blocking and tackling, gets back to the basics,
right?
You know, so back to handwritten notes, you know,
sure.
Stuff like that. It's like, oh, I used to do that,
right?
And that's what's cool. You know, what Nolan was talking about, and I was the same way. You know, I ended up in a stolen Suburban. I don't know why alcoholics, and we end up at the lake. You know what I mean? But so we end up at the lake, and I'm in a stolen Suburban, living in it, 300 miles away. I'm going, I got this, right?
Which lake?
Lake Belton, down in Central Texas.
Okay.
So I've been in every prison, every jail up and down I-State 35. So anyways,
you did the tour,
right? So what's the difference between me and the man underneath the bridge? All right.
Sure.
That debate. Well, I'm not like them. I'm not homeless yet. Right. Mm-hmm. But the difference between me and the man underneath the bridge is one thing, and that's the bridge. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, this disease does not discriminate. This disease is cunning, baffling, and powerful. This disease tells me I don't have a disease, and this disease speaks to me in my own voice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm super proud of both of y'all. I mean,
well, thank you.
I love what y'all are doing here. This is great.
Well, I mean, I love what you're doing, and it's not like I'm reinventing the wheel. I am just another loudspeaker.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, literally, like, you know, a loudspeaker. You know, just echoing the message out there, and letting people know that there's hope. You know,
there is hope.
Yeah.
So
there's real answers out there.
Yeah.
There are real answers to that problem out there.
Yeah.
We have a great gift.
Mm-hmm.
We do have the gift of willingness. I was willing to go to any length to get my drugs and alcohol, and I was willing to go to any length to try to convince you that I'm not using.
Right.
Right. And recovery is the same thing. You know, we're willing to go to any length to make a change and to get different, because we're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yep.
And for your listeners and viewers out there, is that today you never have to feel that way ever again today.
Right. Yeah.
That's all we got.
Yeah. I mean, we're, a testament to it. I mean, two homeless people and one guy that would sleep for 16 hours a day. Wow. So, and we're all sober and here at relatively on time. That's to you, Nolan. Relatively on time. But on a Friday morning, just spreading the word.
Right. We spread the message, not the disease today, right?
There you go.
That's awesome.
Well, that's what it's all about, man. Well, another shout out to our sponsor, Summer Sky. If we can throw that up here. Nolan and I went there, and we appreciate what they did for us, and gave us, when we couldn't do it ourselves, they were there to help us. So, but and other than that, Michael Molthan, I do appreciate you coming out. But anybody you want to shout out to, like somebody that's about to be famous, maybe your your fiance or something?
Yeah. My great fiance, Rachel Stacy, who is a huge part of my life, and she's amazing. And I met her at iHeartRadio. She was a guest on the show, and she's a national recording artist, and she's got an incredible story. You may want to have her on your show.
Yeah, I'd love to.
But check her out at rachelstacy.com, and she's blowing up. So
yeah,
she'll have 10 years sobriety November of this year. Shout out to my son Brandon.
Yeah,
Brandon Molthan. He's coming up on 90 days.
That's great.
Man,
that's huge.
And he has helped me so much.
Yeah,
I mean, he has helped me so much, and and Judge Jennifer Bennett.
Yeah, of course. You always give her. Yeah. Well, she was the one that initially, because you could have been on the inside and a tank boss for about 20 years, right?
And so April 20th. This is funny. 420.
Yeah.
The state of Texas, their national convention for federal judges and felony judges is taking place in Galveston, and it's packed. It's a big deal. And they've asked me to be the keynote speaker
Oh,
at the
cool.
event, and Judge Bennett's introducing me. So, and my son's flying in from Orlando.
Cool. Nice.
Rachel's opening the show with a song, one of her new singles that's not been recorded yet. It's only God can take a mess like us and turn it into a ministry.
Yeah.
Only God can. Only God.
said.
Right. Only God can. Take felons and turn them into phenomenons.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and people are watching like, why does God allow things to happen? Well, number one, he's God. And God allowed things to happen to us three men, okay, so that he alone could show the world, not tell the world, through us that he is God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we're very blessed to be able to have this way of life today.
I agree.
And thank you so much for having me on. What an honor.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, thank you for coming on. Thanks
Yeah.
for coming on the Little Guys show.
Oh,
you
man.
know, and giving us a leg up. I mean, that's what I love about the sober community. It's very 60s hippie-esque, because it's like nobody's like, oh, well, I'm doing a podcast. You can't do a podcast. It's all like, hey, why don't you be on mine, and why don't I be on yours, and all that. And it's like, it's all groovy.
Yeah.
It's all groovy.
Well, at least that's my take on it so far. I haven't met a bad person in sobriety yet.
Right. You will. You will.
Yeah, you will. You will.
Yeah. Oh, we're out there.
You haven't been to enough meetings.
Yeah, right.
And I mean that jokingly.
No,
but,
I know.
But they help me too.
Yeah.
They help me too.
Well, again, thanks for coming out. I believe we're right at about an hour, right? So I think we've disseminated enough information today. Correct,
Awesome.
Nolan? Anything else?
No, just, thanks for coming out. I mean, it's an hour well spent. Anytime I can spend time with drug addicts and alcoholics talking about recovery,
Is
it's a good way
thing.
to start the day.
All right, so I'm gonna make you like wear some embarrassing outfit for not waking up on time and being here next week. So
I'm not sure you have that kind of power. We can discuss it.
It sounds like two guys need to call their sponsors.
Well, anyway, go ahead and play us out there, Weston. But be sure and check us out on YouTube. We have a channel, and of course, M2 The Rock. Thank you for coming out, and be sure and follow, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Hey, and remember, there is no magic pill for sobriety, because if there was, we would all take too many.
Touche.